The rain had already started before Olivia realized she was watching the door. Not watching, waiting. The way you wait without admitting it. Eyes lifting every time the hinge creaked, attention sharpening at the sound of steps in the hallway. The meeting had been going on for several minutes, voices overlapping in that polite professional rhythm that never quite touched anything real. Someone was explaining timelines. Someone else was apologizing for a delay. Olivia nodded when required, took notes she didn't need, pressed the pen harder than necessary against the page. Then the door opened. Cold air moved through the room first, a narrow blade of it, followed by the smell of rain and something darker beneath it. Leather, damp fabric, the faint metallic edge of the city after a storm. Clara stepped in without hurry, helmet tucked under one arm, jacket still unzipped. Water beaded along the shoulders of the leather caught the fluorescent light. Her hair was darker where it had been touched by rain. She paused just long enough to meet the project manager's eyes, mouth curving in an apology that wasn't performed, only offered. "Sorry," she said. Not rushed. Not defensive. The chair scraped softly as she pulled it back, sat. The room adjusted around her without anyone quite meaning to. Olivia felt it as a physical shift, like a draft passing through her chest. Her heartbeat missed something. Not a beat, more like a word. She looked back down at her notebook. The pen hovered. Nothing came. The meeting continued. Slides changed. Numbers appeared and disappeared. Olivia heard herself speak at one point, her voice steady, competent. She was good at this. She had built a life on being good at this. Still, her awareness kept drifting sideways, pulled by small things she didn't know how to name. The way Clara listened with her whole body angled in, the way her fingers rested loosely on the table, unguarded. The way she didn't fill silence when it arrived, just let it settle. When it ended, chairs moved. Bags were gathered. People began leaving in clusters, discussing lunch plans, deadlines, the rain. Olivia stayed seated longer than necessary, reorganizing papers that didn't need organizing. She told herself she was being efficient. She told herself nothing at all. Olivia. Her name sounded different when Clara said it, softer at the edges. Olivia looked up too quickly, then corrected herself, slower this time. Yes? Clara was standing beside the table, helmet still in hand. Up close, the smell was stronger, wet leather warmed by a body, rain clinging to fabric. Olivia became aware of her own breathing. Too shallow. She took a fuller breath, felt it spread. "I'm going to be working late tonight," Clara said. "They mentioned you might be too, for the revisions." "Yes," Olivia said, then paused. "I mean, yes. I will." A small smile touched Clara's mouth. Not amusement. Recognition, maybe. Or nothing at all. "Okay," she said. "Then I'll see you." Not a question. Not an invitation. Just a fact placed gently between them. The afternoon stretched. The office thinned. Rain tapped steadily against the windows, a persistent, patient sound. Olivia answered emails. Reviewed drafts. Made notes. Every so often, without meaning to, she pressed her thumb into the edge of the desk, grounding herself in the solidness of it. Wood, smooth and slightly worn. Something that did not move. By the time evening settled in, the lights above their row of desks were the only ones still on. The building hummed quietly, an after-hours version of itself. Clara sat across from her now, jacket draped over the back of her chair, sleeves of her shirt pushed up to her forearms. She worked without noise, fingers moving with an economy that suggested long familiarity with deadlines. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Occasionally, one of them would lean closer to the shared screen, shoulders nearly touching. The proximity was unremarkable in theory. In practice, Olivia felt it everywhere. Heat. Awareness. A kind of alert stillness, as if her body were waiting for instructions it refused to give her mind. She noticed things she wouldn't have noticed otherwise. The faint scar near Clara's wrist. The way she tilted her head when concentrating. The pause before she spoke, as if considering not just words but the space they would land in. Coffee cups appeared at some point. Disposable. Clara took hers black. Olivia added nothing to hers either, though she usually did. Clara noticed. "You don't take sugar," she said, almost to herself. Olivia blinked. "No." "I remembered," Clara said, not looking at her. No emphasis. Just a statement. Something tightened low in Olivia's chest. She pressed her lips together, nodded, focused back on the screen. The thought came uninvited, circular and insistent. This is how it starts. She didn't know what it was. She only knew the phrase had weight. Silence returned. Not awkward. Not empty. A shared quiet that felt deliberate, like an agreement neither of them had spoken aloud. Olivia let her eyes drift closed for a moment, then opened them again, careful. She had the distinct sensation of standing near the edge of something, toes curled over without having decided to step. Her phone vibrated on the desk. A message from her boyfriend. Something about dinner. A cancellation. A casual apology. Olivia read it twice, then a third time, as if the meaning might change. It didn't. She typed a response she had typed before. No worries. Another time. Her fingers moved automatically. When she looked up, Clara was watching her. Not intrusively. Just there. "You okay?" Clara asked. It was a small question. Ordinary. Olivia felt its reach anyway. "Yes," she said, then stopped. "I mean, yeah." Clara didn't push. She nodded once, turned back to her work. The moment passed, but the echo of it remained. Olivia became acutely aware of the way she was sitting, the way her body angled slightly toward Clara without instruction. She shifted, then shifted back. No, not that. She let herself be still. Time moved. The rain eased, then returned, softer. Somewhere down the hall, a door closed. The world continued in its quiet, indifferent way. Later, when the clock crept toward a number that suggested permission to leave, Clara saved her work and stood, stretching her arms overhead. The movement drew Olivia's gaze before she could stop it. Clara caught it just briefly. Their eyes met. Held. Something passed between them, not a message exactly. More like a shared awareness of the holding. "I can give you a ride," Clara said, adjusting her jacket. "If you want. I'm heading toward the metro anyway." Olivia's heart answered before she could. Her mouth lagged behind. "Oh," she said. She stopped, considered the empty space of the parking lot, the rain, the late hour. Considered the ease with which the offer had been made. No insistence. No expectation. "Okay," she said, softly. The elevator ride down was quiet. Close. Olivia could feel the warmth of Clara beside her, the faint brush of fabric when the elevator shifted. She focused on the numbers descending, on the reflection of them both in the mirrored wall, two women standing just far enough apart to suggest intention. Outside, the air was cool and damp. The parking structure echoed with distant water, footsteps. Clara retrieved the motorcycle from its place, movements practiced, sure. She held out a helmet. "It's dry inside," she said. "Still warm." Olivia took it. The interior retained heat, the shape of another head. She hesitated only a moment before slipping it on, the padding brushing her cheeks and closing her vision. The world narrowed, focused. Mounting the bike required closeness. There was no avoiding it. Olivia's hands hovered, then settled at Clara's waist, light at first, then firmer as Clara adjusted. "You good?" Clara asked. "Yes," Olivia said. This time it felt true. The engine came to life beneath them, a vibration that traveled through Olivia's body, settled somewhere deep. She leaned in as the bike moved, instinct taking over, arms tightening just enough to hold on. The city blurred around them, lights streaking, rain cooling her skin through the gaps in her clothing. Wind pressed against her, stole her breath, and gave it back sharper. At stops, Clara turned her head slightly, checking on her. The gesture was minimal. The effect was not. Olivia found herself memorizing the line of Clara's profile beneath the visor, the way the streetlight caught the curve of her cheek. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The ride itself became a kind of conversation. Each turn and pause, a sentence felt rather than heard. When they reached the metro entrance, Clara slowed, pulled in beneath the shelter of an overhang. The engine cut. The sudden quiet felt loud. Olivia didn't move right away. The helmet was still warm. Her hands were still resting at Clara's waist. She was aware of all of it. The rain dripping from the edge of the roof, the distant sound of traffic, the closeness that no longer had motion to disguise it. Clara waited. She didn't rush. She turned slightly, enough to look at Olivia. "You okay?" she asked again. It was the same question. It wasn't. Olivia swallowed. Her pulse was everywhere. She thought of the life she had built, the careful edits, the way she had learned to observe herself from a safe distance. She thought of the warmth still lingering in the helmet, the way her body had responded without consultation. She stopped, restarted. "I think so." Clara nodded, as if that were answer enough. She reached out, fingers brushing Olivia's wrist as she helped her off the bike. The touch lingered a fraction longer than necessary. Not accidental. Not claimed. Olivia felt it settle inside her, a small, persistent weight. As she removed the helmet, the air felt colder. Clara took it back, their fingers grazing. Another pause. Another held moment. The rain softened around them, as if the world had leaned in to listen. Olivia stood under the shelter, heart still moving too fast, thoughts looping back to the same quiet realization. Something had shifted. Not broken. Not resolved. Just moved. She watched as Clara put the helmet away, mounted the bike again. Watched as she pulled on her gloves, movements unhurried. Before leaving, Clara looked back once more. "See you tomorrow," she said. "Yes," Olivia said. The word felt different now. Weighted. As the motorcycle disappeared into the rain, Olivia remained where she was, hands still warm where Clara had touched her, the echo of the ride vibrating faintly through her. The thought returned, insistent and newly shaped. "This is not nothing." She stepped toward the metro entrance, carrying it with her. By the time Olivia reached her desk the next morning, the rain had already left her body. Not entirely. Something of it remained. An echo under the skin, a faint vibration that hadn't quite settled. She hung her coat, set her bag down, powered on her computer. The motions were familiar enough to move through without thought. It was the thinking that felt altered, as if a quiet question had been left running overnight, and she'd woken to its low, steady hum. She didn't look for Clara right away. That was deliberate. Or maybe it was fear dressed up as discipline. Olivia opened emails, skimmed messages, replied where required. She took a sip of coffee and noticed, too late, that it tasted different. Bitter. She hadn't added sugar. She paused, cup hovering near her mouth, then set it down without correcting it. Across the room, chairs shifted. Someone laughed. The office resumed its daytime rhythm, full again, layered with sound and movement. Life continuing as it always did, indifferent to the internal rearrangements of one person. When she finally looked up, Clara was already there. Not standing, not arriving, just present. Seated at her desk, jacket gone, hair pulled back loosely, a pen resting between her fingers. She was reading something on her screen with the same absorbed stillness Olivia remembered from the night before. No urgency. No distraction. Their eyes met briefly. No greeting yet. Just recognition. Something eased in Olivia's chest. Not relief. More like confirmation. Later, much later, or maybe only minutes, time behaving strangely, Clara walked over with a folder tucked under her arm. "Morning," she said. "Morning," Olivia replied. The word felt normal. It surprised her. They stood there a moment, neither quite stepping into the conversation that could follow. Clara glanced at the coffee cup on Olivia's desk. "No sugar today?" she asked. Olivia smiled before she could stop herself. It was small. Private. "I forgot," she said. Then after a beat, "I didn't mind." Clara's mouth curved just slightly. She nodded, as if filing the information away. The folder was set down between them. "I made notes on the revisions," Clara said. "We can go through them whenever." "Sure," Olivia said. "Anytime." "Not now." "Not later." Just available. They didn't sit together right away. The morning filled itself with tasks, meetings, interruptions. Still, there was an awareness that threaded through it all, a quiet tracking of proximity. Olivia knew when Clara was behind her without turning, knew when she left the room. Felt it each time, like a slight drop in pressure. It wasn't longing. Not yet. It was attunement. In the afternoon, when the office thinned again, and the light shifted, Clara rolled her chair closer. Not touching. Close enough. "Can I see that section again?" she asked. Olivia angled her screen, leaned in. Their shoulders brushed, accidentally probably. Olivia didn't move away. She focused on the text, the glow of the monitor reflecting faintly in Clara's eyes. They worked like that for a long time. Reading. Adjusting. Reading. The kind of collaboration that settled into shared breath without announcement. Olivia noticed that she stopped explaining herself halfway through sentences, trusting Clara to follow. Clara did. Always. At some point, Clara reached for Olivia's pen without asking, fingers closing around it. Olivia watched the movement, the way Clara's hand looked holding something that belonged to her. The thought arrived, uninvited and unsettling. She knows how I hold it. She tightened her grip sometimes, loosened it when she needed to breathe. The pen was returned. Their fingers brushed. Brief. Electric enough to make Olivia inhale sharply, then steady herself. No one commented. They ordered food around 7. Takeout, eaten from containers balanced on the edge of desks. Mundane. Necessary. Clara pushed a napkin toward Olivia when sauce struck too close to her sleeve. Olivia caught the gesture, the quiet care of it, and felt something warm settle behind her ribs. "You always stay this late?" Olivia asked, somewhere between bites. Clara shrugged. "When it matters. And does this matter?" Olivia asked. Clara looked at her then. Fully. Considered. "Yes." The word landed softly, decisively. Olivia didn't respond. She didn't need to. When the work was finally done, they lingered anyway. Neither of them said so, but the leaving felt premature. The outside world waited, patient, its obligations intact. "Ride again?" Clara asked, already reaching for her jacket. Olivia nodded. This time there was no hesitation. The ritual was already forming. The helmet offered, the warmth inside it, the careful mounting of the bike. Olivia's hands finding their place at Clara's waist with less uncertainty now, fingers settling into familiarity. The ride felt different in daylight fading into night. Less disorienting. More intimate. Olivia noticed the way Clara adjusted her speed instinctively, the way she leaned into turns with a confidence that felt protective rather than reckless. At red lights, Olivia leaned in slightly, resting closer than necessity required. Clara didn't comment. Didn't pull away. The silence between them held. They stopped for coffee near the metro instead of parting right away. A small place, warm, crowded with the low murmur of conversation. They stood close at the counter, shoulders nearly touching as they waited. Olivia became acutely aware of the space between them, the way it seemed charged, responsive. Clara paid without discussion. Olivia noticed, accepted it, filed it away as another quiet gesture that meant more than it claimed. They sat by the window. Watched rain start again, light this time. Clara wrapped her hands around her cup, eyes unfocused. "You ever feel like you're slightly out of sync with your own life?" Olivia asked. The question surprised her as soon as it left her mouth. Clara didn't answer right away. She took a sip. Considered. "Yes," she said finally. "More often than I used to." Something in Olivia loosened. Not relief. Recognition. They didn't elaborate. They didn't need to. The coffee cooled between them. People came and went. Time passed. When they stood to leave, Clara reached out automatically, brushing a drop of water from Olivia's sleeve. The gesture was intimate in its unconsciousness. They both noticed it. Clara's hand lingered, then fell away. "Sorry," she said. "It's fine," Olivia replied. Her voice was steady. Her body was not. Outside, under the overhang, they paused. The bike waited. The metro entrance glowed behind them. "You don't have to," Clara said quietly. Not about the ride. About everything. I know, Olivia said. She stepped forward anyway. The ride was shorter this time. Or maybe it just felt that way. At the stop, Olivia didn't rush to dismount. Clara didn't rush her. They stood close beneath the shelter, rain tapping softly nearby. Olivia could feel her pulse in her throat. She could feel the nearness of Clara like a held breath. Neither of them spoke. Eventually, Olivia stepped back. Not away. Just not forward. Tomorrow? Clara asked. Yes, Olivia said. The answer came easily now. As she descended into the metro, Olivia touched her own wrist, the place where Clara's fingers had rested earlier. The sensation lingered, a quiet insistence. Thought returned, reshaped but familiar. This is becoming something. She didn't know what that something was yet. She only knew she was no longer outside her own story watching. By the third morning, Olivia woke with the sensation already in her body. Not anticipation exactly. More like awareness sharpened to a fine edge. She noticed everything. Light slipping through the blinds, the faint ache in her shoulders, the echo of a vibration that wasn't there anymore but still felt present. Low and steady. The ride. The stops. The way her hands had learned where to rest. She lay still longer than usual, letting the feeling settle instead of pushing it away. Letting it exist without explanation. At work, the building greeted her with its familiar neutrality. Glass. Steel. Voices layered into a manageable hum. She moved through it with practiced ease, greeting colleagues, answering questions, offering smiles that required no effort. Still, her attention kept drifting, toward the elevator, the hallway, the space Clara usually occupied. When she saw her, it was almost anticlimactic. Clara was already there, standing by the printer, sleeves rolled up, hair loose today, falling slightly into her face as she waited. She looked ordinary in a way that felt profound. Olivia's chest tightened, then released. They exchanged a look. Nothing more. Something passed anyway. Later, they worked side by side without discussion, falling into the rhythm that had already become theirs. The same desk. The same shared screen. The same quiet efficiency. Olivia noticed how her body oriented itself toward Clara now without hesitation, how the space between them had narrowed without anyone naming it. At lunch, they sat together. Not intentionally. It just happened that way. They ate slowly, distracted by the city outside the window, by the way time seemed to stretch when neither of them rushed it. Clara listened more than she spoke. Olivia found herself filling the silence with small details she usually edited out. An anecdote about her commute, a comment about a book she'd abandoned halfway through. Clara remembered them all. In the afternoon, a meeting ran late. People filtered out in ones and twos until it was just the two of them again, the room holding their presence like it had been designed for it. The familiar action, reviewing, revising, rereading, carried a different weight now. Every shared glance felt deliberate. Every accidental touch felt noticed. Olivia's thoughts began to circle more tightly. She was aware of desire in a way that startled her, not loud or urgent, but present, undeniable. It existed alongside hesitation, layered over years of habit and careful living. She felt both at once, neither canceling the other out. At one point, Clara leaned closer than usual to point something out on the screen. Olivia felt her breath on her neck, warm and steady. She didn't move away. She didn't lean in either. The moment stretched, fragile, balanced. Clara pulled back first. "Sorry," she said quietly. "It's okay," Olivia replied. Her voice was even. Her hands were not. The day ended without resolution. Of course it did. They walked out together. The sky was clear tonight, the air cooler, sharper. Clara retrieved the bike, offered the helmet. Olivia accepted it with a familiarity that surprised her. The warmth inside felt less intrusive now. More intimate. The ride was quieter than usual. No rain to mask the sounds. The city sharp around them. Olivia held on, closer this time, her cheek near Clara's shoulder. She could feel the muscles beneath the fabric, the subtle adjustments Clara made to keep them balanced. At the metro, they didn't part immediately. "I don't have to go yet," Clara said. Not as a suggestion. Just information. Olivia nodded. Me either. They walked a few blocks instead, side by side, hands close but not touching. The city moved around them. Cars passing, people laughing, a bus sighing as it stopped. Ordinary life continued, oblivious. They stopped beneath a tree, its leaves casting soft shadows under the streetlight. The pause felt intentional. Olivia's heart was loud now. She wondered if Clara could hear it. "I've been thinking," Clara said, then stopped. Restarted. "No. That's not," she exhaled, steadying herself. "I want to be careful," she said instead. The words settled between them, gentle but firm. "So do I," Olivia said. Silence followed. Not empty. Full. Clara reached out slowly, deliberately, stopping just short of touching Olivia's hand. A question without words. Olivia didn't move away. She closed the distance herself, fingers brushing Clara's. The contact was light, tentative, unmistakably chosen. They stood there, hands barely touching, breath shared. The world narrowed again. Clara leaned in, stopping just before their foreheads touched. Close enough that Olivia could see the slight crease between her brows, the careful control in her expression. "Tell me if you want me to stop," Clara said. Olivia swallowed. "I won't," she said. Then, softer, "I don't." The kiss, when it came, was almost restrained to the point of disbelief. A careful meeting of mouths, brief, exploratory, not claiming, not consuming, just acknowledging. Olivia felt it everywhere. They didn't deepen it right away. They stayed there, lips touching, then parting, then touching again. The world held its breath. So did Olivia. When Clara finally pulled back, her hand lingered at Olivia's waist, warm, grounding. Olivia rested her forehead against Clara's shoulder, letting the sensation wash through her. Heat, steadiness, the echo of a choice made. They didn't speak for a long time. Eventually, reality reasserted itself. A phone vibrated nearby. A car honked. Time resumed its forward motion, indifferent. Clara stepped back, just enough to re-establish space. Not distance. "We should go," she said quietly. "Yes," Olivia agreed. They parted without ceremony. No promises. No reassurances. Just a shared understanding that something irreversible had occurred. On the metro ride home, Olivia stared at her reflection in the dark window. She looked the same. She felt altered in ways she couldn't yet articulate. The thought repeated, insistent and undeniable now. This cannot be undone. She didn't try to undo it. The day after the kiss arrived without ceremony. Olivia noticed it first in her body, not her thoughts. A tightness behind the sternum. A carefulness in her movements as if something fragile had been placed inside her overnight, and she wasn't yet sure how to carry it without damage. She moved through her morning slower than usual, aware of each decision. What to wear, how much time to spend in front of the mirror, whether to let her hair fall loose or tie it back. She tied it back. At work, everything looked the same. The same glass doors. The same security desk. The same polite greetings exchanged without weight. The world had not shifted to acknowledge what had happened. That was part of the problem. Clara was already there. Not waiting. Not arriving. Just present again, as she always was. Standing near the windows, talking with someone from accounting, posture relaxed, one hand resting loosely in her pocket. From a distance, nothing about her suggested rupture or restraint. She looked exactly like the woman Olivia had known for weeks. Up close, it was different. Their eyes met briefly across the room. A flicker passed between them, recognition sharpened by memory, by the knowledge of mouths meeting, of breath shared beneath the streetlight. Olivia felt her pulse quicken, then steady itself through sheer will. Clara nodded once. Not a smile. Not avoidance. Something tearful. They didn't sit together that morning. It wasn't announced. It wasn't discussed. Olivia took her place at her own desk, opened her laptop, focused on the familiar sequence of tasks. The distance between them wasn't dramatic, just enough to notice, just enough to feel intentional. Emails filled the first hour. Meetings followed. Olivia spoke when required, listened when expected. She felt as though she were performing a version of herself that had been rehearsed long ago, one that knew how to function without touching the center of anything. Still, her awareness kept drifting sideways. She noticed when Clara laughed softly at something someone said. Not loud. Not performative. Olivia noticed when she leaned in to show a colleague something on her screen, the same gesture she'd used with Olivia countless times. It shouldn't have mattered. It did. At mid-morning, Clara walked past Olivia's desk without stopping. Their shoulders were close enough that Olivia caught the faint scent she recognized immediately. Clean soap, something warm beneath it. Leather, maybe. Though Clara wasn't wearing the jacket today. Memory supplied what wasn't present. The absence felt physical. Later, when they did end up in the same room, another review session, another set of revisions, the air felt altered, thinner, charged in a way that made every movement deliberate. They worked side by side, but not close. The shared screen remained between them, a small, glowing boundary. When Clara spoke, she addressed the work, not Olivia. When Olivia responded, her voice was measured, professional. Each word chosen with care, as if any slip might open something neither of them was ready to face. It wasn't cold. It was restrained. Olivia became acutely aware of how often she wanted to reach for small things she'd taken for granted before. The pen Clara favored, the way their knees sometimes brushed under the table, the ease of leaning in without thought. Each impulse rose and was checked, rising again later in a slightly different form. Interior silence grew louder. She told herself she was being responsible, that restraint was necessary, that one kiss did not rewrite a life. She thought of her boyfriend, his casual message the night before, the familiarity of it, the safety. She thought of her parents, their quiet pride, the version of her they believed they knew. The thoughts didn't arrive in order. They fragmented, overlapped, returned to the same place with different weight. What does this cost? What does it ask? What happens if I don't look away? At lunch they sat at the same table with others. Colleagues talked about weekend plans, about a new restaurant opening nearby. Olivia nodded, smiled, contributed where appropriate. Clara did the same. Their eyes didn't meet once. The space between them felt louder than conversation. When someone asked if they were both staying late again, Clara answered first. I might, she said. Neutral, doubt, uncommitted. Olivia felt a flicker of something, disappointment maybe, or relief. She wasn't sure which unsettled her more. The afternoon dragged. By early evening, the office thinned again, but the usual intimacy didn't settle in. Clara gathered her things earlier than expected, slipped on her jacket. Olivia watched from the corner of her eye, heart doing something unhelpful and insistent. Clara paused by Olivia's desk. Not close, not distant. Precisely measured. I'm heading out, she said. Okay, Olivia replied. A beat passed. Another. Good night, Clara added. You too. That was it. The door closed behind Clara with a soft finality that lingered longer than the sound itself. Olivia stared at her screen without seeing it, fingers resting uselessly on the keyboard. The absence pressed in on her, a weight where warmth had been. She stayed late anyway. There was work to finish. There was always work to finish. On the metro ride home, Olivia replayed the silence. Not the kiss. The restraint after it. The careful distance. The way Clara's voice had remained steady, respectful, untouched by pressure. She wondered if that made it easier. It didn't. The next day followed a similar pattern. Proximity without closeness. Familiar routines stripped of their ease. When Clara passed her a document their fingers didn't touch. When Olivia spoke, Clara listened with the same attentiveness as before. But something had shifted, a thin layer of caution overlaying everything. The shared micro-life they'd built didn't disappear. It became fragile. Coffee still happened. Work still happened. They existed in the same spaces. But the pauses were different now. Weighted. Charged with what had been acknowledged, and then carefully set aside. Olivia felt the restraint in her body most acutely. In the way her shoulders held tension she hadn't noticed before. In the way her breath caught unexpectedly when Clara laughed, or leaned back in her chair, or brushed hair from her face. She began to notice absence as sensation. The lack of touch became its own presence. The unshared ride home left her hands restless, fingers curling around nothing. The space where Clara's warmth had been now felt colder by comparison, even in a crowded train. Midweek, a small rupture occurred, not dramatic, not loud. They were alone in the conference room again, reviewing final notes. Clara pointed out an inconsistency. Olivia disagreed. The exchange was polite, professional, but something in Clara's tone shifted, firmer, more distant. "I think we should stick to the original framework," Clara said. Olivia felt a sharpness rise, unbidden. "We've already moved away from it in 3 places," she replied. Clara's jaw tightened slightly. "Not in ways that affect the core?" Silence followed. "Not the comfortable kind." Olivia exhaled slowly. "Okay," she said. "We can revisit it." The tension lingered, unresolved. Not about the work. About everything else that wasn't being said. Afterward, Clara apologized. Quietly. Briefly. "I didn't mean to sound dismissive," she said. "It's fine," Olivia replied. She meant it. She also didn't. They didn't discuss the other thing. The thing that hovered, unnamed, between them. The thing that shaped every choice now. The world continued regardless. Deadlines approached. Emails piled up. Meetings filled calendars. Olivia's boyfriend texted more frequently, sensing, perhaps, something amiss. She responded with the same careful affection she always had, feeling both comforted and trapped by it. At night, alone, the memory of the kiss returned uninvited. Not the act itself, but the stillness after. The way Clara's hand had rested at her waist, grounding. The way it had been released without argument. The restraint hurt more than the crossing ever could have. By Friday, the tension had stretched thin but not snapped. Clara suggested staying late again, almost casually. Olivia agreed before thinking. They worked quietly, side by side, the familiar rhythm returning in muted form. When it was time to leave, they stood near the door, coats on, bags in hand. The parking lot beyond the glass looked wet, reflective. Rain threatened. "I can." Clara started, then stopped. Olivia looked at her. Clara inhaled, steadied herself. "I can give you a ride, if you want." The offer hung there. Familiar. Charged. Not innocent anymore. Olivia felt the weight of the choice settle fully now. Accepting meant reopening something she'd worked all week to contain. Refusing meant something else entirely. She looked at Clara. Really looked. Saw the patience there. The care. The restraint that had cost something. Olivia began. She didn't finish. Olivia stood there longer than the pause required. The offer hovered between them. Unfinished, weighted by everything it carried now. The rain had begun again. Light but persistent, tapping against the glass as if marking time. Claire waited without movement, without pressure. Her hands rested loosely at her sides. The stillness of her felt intentional, practiced. A space left open rather than filled. Olivia said again, then stopped. She became aware of her own breathing, shallow and uneven. Of the way her shoulders had lifted, protective. Of how familiar that posture was. She had lived in it for years without noticing, carrying herself slightly braced, slightly removed, watching her own life from a safe distance. She let her shoulders drop. "Yes," she said. The word landed quietly. No flourish. No declaration. Just truth. Clara nodded once, a small exhale leaving her. Relief didn't rush in. Neither did urgency. What arrived instead was steadiness, a shared acknowledgement of the choice, accepted rather than seized. They walked to the parking structure together. Not touching. Close enough that Olivia could feel Clara's presence like a low current beside her. The motorcycle waited where it always did, dark and still under the dim lights. Clara moved toward it with her usual ease, but there was a slight hesitation this time, a glance back that checked rather than assumed. Olivia noticed. She appreciated it more than she could say. The helmet was offered. Warm again. Familiar. Olivia accepted it, fitting it over her head. the world narrowing to sound and breath, and the faint scent that had become its own quiet language. She mounted the bike with less deliberation now, her hands finding Clara's waist naturally. Not gripping. Resting. The engine started. The vibration traveled through them, settled. They pulled out into the rain-slicked street, city lights smearing softly at the edges. The ride felt different tonight, not charged with discovery or restraint, but with something calmer, heavier. As if they were carrying the weight of honesty between them now, and it required care. Olivia leaned in as they moved, her cheek near Clara's shoulder. She noticed the way Clara adjusted her speed, smoother than usual, as if aware of every shift in balance. The trust between them felt physical, shared through motion rather than words. At the metro entrance, Clara didn't stop. She continued past it, navigating through quieter streets, away from the familiar drop-off. Olivia noticed, felt the question rise, but she didn't ask. She trusted the direction, trusted the silence that held it. They stopped several blocks later, beneath an overpass where the rain softened to a muted echo. The engine cut. The sudden quiet pressed in around them, intimate in its isolation. Clara dismounted first, then turned to help Olivia off. Her hand at Olivia's wrist was steady, deliberate. The touch lingered, not by accident. Olivia didn't pull away. They stood there close, the air cool between them, breath visible in the dim light. For a moment neither spoke. The world beyond the overpass continued, cars passing, water dripping, distant voices, but it felt separate, like a background track to something more immediate. "I don't want to assume," Clara said finally. Her voice was low, careful. "About anything." Olivia nodded. She felt the words settle, make space rather than demand it. "I don't want to keep pretending," Olivia said. The admission surprised her in its simplicity. "Not with you." Clara's gaze held hers. Not searching. Receiving. "Okay," she said. Just that. The kiss this time was different. Still gentle. Still unhurried. But less tentative. Olivia felt Clara's hand come to rest at her waist again, warm and grounding, fingers spread as if to anchor them both. Olivia leaned in fully, her hand sliding up Clara's arms, settling at her shoulders. The contact felt like arrival rather than crossing. They stayed there longer than before. Lips meeting, parting, meeting again. Breathing together. The world narrowing to sensation. Warmth, pressure. The quiet certainty of consent renewed in every pause. When they finally pulled back, they didn't separate completely. Foreheads touched. Breath mingled. "I need to tell him," Olivia said softly. "Not now. Not immediately." But the truth of it was already forming inside her, solid and undeniable. Clara nodded. "I know." There was no impatience in her tone. No expectation beyond honesty. The steadiness of it made Olivia's chest ache in a way that felt like relief. They stayed under the overpass a while longer, talking quietly. About nothing. About everything. Small details surfaced naturally, the way Olivia always edited herself in rooms, the way Clara had learned to wait rather than push. They didn't solve anything. They didn't need to. Eventually they returned to the bike. The ride continued, slower now, the city unfolding around them with a different texture. When they reached Clara's building, Olivia didn't feel the familiar drop of anticipation or loss. Just presence. Inside, the apartment was quiet. Clean. Lived in without excess. Clara moved through it with an ease that felt inviting rather than performative. She offered tea. Olivia accepted. They stood side by side in the kitchen, watching water heat, hands occasionally brushing as they reached for mugs or spoons. The mundane act of it, waiting for the kettle leaning against the counter, felt significant in its ordinariness. This, Olivia realized, was the part she had always imagined other people living. Quiet continuity after choice. They sat on the couch, tea warming their hands. Olivia rested her head against Clara's shoulder without thinking. The contact felt natural, earned. Clara's arm settled around her, light but certain. They talked about logistics eventually. Carefully. Honestly. No grand declarations. Just truths acknowledged and held with respect. Later, when Olivia left, the goodbye was unremarkable in the best way. A kiss at the door. A promise to talk soon. No dramatic lingering. On the metro ride home, Olivia watched her reflection again. She still looked like herself. The difference was subtler than she'd imagined. Something in the way she held her gaze, steadier now, less guarded. The following days unfolded with quiet consistency. Conversations happened. Difficult ones. Necessary ones. Olivia moved through them with a clarity that surprised her, anchored by the steadiness she felt when she thought of Clara, not as an escape, but as a presence she could choose without disappearing. At work, the dynamic shifted again. Not back to before, forward into something new. They sat together naturally now, shared screens and coffee without pretense. The intimacy was quieter, deeper. Less charged by secrecy, more shaped by trust. The world still moved on. Deadlines came and went. Colleagues joked, complained, planned weekends. Life continued in its indifferent way. But something had settled. In the small, repeated gestures, the way Clara remembered how Olivia took her tea, the way Olivia reached for Clara's hand without thinking, there was permanence. Not certainty about the future, but a commitment to presence. One evening, weeks later, they rode through the city again. Rain beginning to fall, lights blurring softly. Olivia held on, familiar and sure. She realized she wasn't bracing anymore. She was simply there. The motorcycle moved steadily beneath them. The heart that had once hesitated now kept pace. Some doors don't open with noise, they yield when we finally stop holding them shut. What would it mean to stop editing yourself for a life that asks you to be fully seen? Some stories don't end when the moment fades. They stay with us, asking to be felt. If this story awakens something you recognize, you're welcome to share your truth in the comments. And if this journey stayed with you, consider subscribing to Secret Garden Stories and sharing it with someone who might feel seen. Your support helps this space grow. A world with more love, more honesty, and less silence. Thank you for being here.